Okay, we are live. Hello, everybody. So, a little bit scattered and chaotic, but I'm going to get it together here. Wasn't sure this was going to work. If you can't hear me, let me know. But I think it should be working. The camera's working, so we're off to a good start. It didn't cooperate yesterday when I tried to do a Facebook Live on my laptop. It was just not cooperating at all. So, it looks like that's at least working today. So today we're going to be chatting about the book, The Witch's Heart, which is behind me and not standing up, which was our book club pick of the month for, what month was this for? This is for July. I don't know what month it is. So that is what we're going to be talking about today. So I'll wait a few minutes and let people come who wanted to show up for this tonight. But I'll get started with my thoughts. This was a 5-star book for me. I loved it. I really wasn't sure going in what I was going to think of it. I liked the idea of it, but like I wasn't sure if it was going to be for me, if it was going to just, I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking about. Hello, Jackie, and hello, Emily. But I ended up loving it so much. The banter between Angrboda and Loki was maybe my favorite thing I've ever read. It was just great. I really liked the themes in the story. So much of this book worked really well for me. So I've decided that like mythology retellings are definitely my thing. I think that's a thing I'm going to add to my list of like when I'm looking for books. I'm definitely going to be looking for more mythology retellings. I feel like I've read a lot lately of those kinds of books that I just loved. So my thoughts, this was like a perfect book for me. It was great. I loved it. 5 stars. It's probably going to be in my top 10 of the whole year. I also want to say I really love Norse mythology, so that alone made it work well for me. I just really enjoyed it. So I have some I wrote pages of notes here, so I'm going to try to like work through this in an organized manner because I did want to be more organized after last month's live show, which was kind of scatterbrained and nonsense. I don't know if you can see that, it's kind of bright, but I did tab my book. So I didn't like full on annotate because I just don't have the brain space for that right now. But I wanted to at least make an attempt at like marking things that stuck out to me or that I really liked. A lot of it, honestly, is me marking banter between Loki and Angrboda because that was like the best. Did anybody else just completely picture Loki as Tom Hiddleston? Like I couldn't see him in any other way. So I just pictured him, his voice, just Tom Hiddleston is Loki. So, but I also found myself like visualizing Angrboda as Lagertha from the Vikings. So I don't know if you guys have seen that show. It's one of my very favorite TV shows. And so I saw Lagertha when I pictured Angrboda. I feel like they have a lot of similarities, honestly. And so like a lot of the casting in my head came from that because that's already Norse. So, and I could hear it like, I could hear it in my head in their voices. Like, I feel like this would be a really great book to adapt. I hope they do at some point because I would love to see it. So let's talk a bit about, well, let's just go through the discussion questions because as I was coming up with stuff to talk about, I ended up like repeating myself a lot in these discussion questions. So let's talk about that. Let's see. Okay, the first question says, this book draws strongly from Norse mythology. Which of these gods and goddesses were you familiar with and which were new? And how did the author's depiction of the deities compare to the ideas and images you already have? So I want to start by saying I read this a couple of years ago and I'm obsessed with it. This is one of my also favorite books because it's just great. And this is Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology. And this wasn't like my first foray into Norse mythology. I believe we also have the Delaire's book for children. So I'd read some of that. This is fantastic. And I feel like these go so well together. So if you read this and you really liked it and you want more Norse mythology, I highly recommend you pick this up because this pairs so well. Like a lot of the stories I remembered as I was reading this because they were also in here. So highly recommend. This was great. So I already had a lot of that in my mind. And so I think that also helped me get more out of the book. But I'll say that the way this book is written kind of flips your view of things. Because, for example, and the one that stuck out the most to me is, in my mind, Thor is a good guy. And Thor is, Chris Hemsworth, for one. Like, I have a vision of Thor in my mind. And in this book, Thor is kind of a jerk. He's kind of almost a villain. And so to see him represented so differently from a character's point of view, from her perspective, that's exactly what Thor is. He's terrible. He's violent and he's cruel and he's showing off all the time how strong he is. And like, I don't know. To me, that was a really interesting interpretation of the stories because he's so often seen as something very different. So I really liked how the story kind of twisted my thoughts about who I think people were, or not people, but mythological beings were. So I really liked that. That surprised me because usually I don't like when a character that I love is shown in a negative way. Like it usually like makes me sort of upset, but I really thought that was an interesting take because if you think about it, he isn't really the greatest of guys. So Emily says she's always pictured Thor as a jerk. Yeah, I can see why. Now that I've read this, like I can see it. It makes sense. But I just thought that was really interesting. I'm going to put this behind me so I don't have to hold it the whole time. You guys can still see it. Okay. Yeah, I thought the information in the back of the book was great too. I find myself flipping back a lot because even though I'd read some Norse mythology before, it was nice to kind of refresh my memory on things because it had been a while. But yeah, this has me like wanting to seek out more Norse mythology retellings, more like Viking era type stuff. I just thought it all was really great. So yeah, what other deities did we talk about? Like the whole thing with Angrboda's children was really interesting because while I remember vaguely stuff about that, it's much more prominent in the story, obviously, because it's Angrboda talking about her own children. So that was all really interesting to me, particularly Hel. I thought she was a really interesting and well thought out character, and seeing her grow up and stuff was really interesting. Okay, let's go on to the next question. So the book starts out with Loki literally giving Angrboda her heart back. What does that signify about their relationship? Do you think it is a significant reason that she trusts him, even though she knows he is Odin's blood brother and a trickster? Did you think he was trustworthy? Were you surprised by his betrayal, or did you see it coming? I mean, he is a trickster. So I wasn't entirely surprised that he would betray. However, I'm still not 100% sure I feel like it was a full-on betrayal because it's not like he did it by his own choice, or at least he didn't think it was by his own choice. He, I think, felt it was what he was forced to do. It didn't feel like his heart was in it. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like he might not be 100% trustworthy because he's a trickster, and tricksters generally aren't. But I do think he really did love Angrboda and his children. Some of my favorite stuff in the book was Loki with his children, and like particularly, and I think I even tabbed it a couple different times, like his first like initial thoughts about being a father were very negative, like, oh, I don't like babies, and when they start pooping, you're gonna deal with it because ew. And then to go from that to like, oh my god, my children are the best thing in the world and Hel is perfection, and he was obsessed with his children, and I think that was just so sweet, and like it definitely felt honest and truthful. So I don't think he would have ever harmed his children on purpose or for like betraying them. So Well, that's just my interpretation of it. Did you guys think he was trustworthy, or did you guys expect him to do something terrible to his family? I don't know. And that kind of leads to the next question. How did becoming a mother shift Angrboda's priorities and her worldview? I really liked seeing Angrboda kind of become a different person throughout the story. She definitely has a lot of growth from the beginning to the end. One of the things that I really loved about the book was kind of how they kept repeating the thing about there once was a witch that lived in these woods, and like once upon a time. And it was just really interesting to me how stories get woven into the history. And I don't know, I found that really beautiful and really interesting about her character, is that like she is that witch that had lived in these woods so long ago. And I found that really fascinating, the idea of this eternal witch, even though she wasn't really eternal because she does eventually die. Or does she? I kind of feel like she never really dies because she lives on through stories. And but now I'm off topic. How did it becoming a mother change her? I think that, like anybody, becoming a mother and like falling in love so deeply with another person really does make you see the world in a different way. I particularly liked the fact that Angrboda's children were so different. The fact that like Hel is sort of half dead, but otherwise somewhat normal. But then Fenrir is a literal wolf, and he's gigantic. And then Jormungand, is that his name? I always mess that up. But he's a snake, and like he's enormous. And the fact that she didn't even notice that, seemingly like she knew they were different, but like those were still her babies, and she loved all of them the same. Like, I don't know. I found that really, really beautiful. And I definitely thought that she changed the way she looked at the world and the way she protected herself from the world more because of her children. Yeah, Emily says she had more responsibility and was definitely more vulnerable after she became a mother. Yeah, that did make her more vulnerable. Let's talk about Skady, because I really liked Skady a lot, and their relationship with each other was just really beautiful. Angrboda and Skady's relationship is one of the most important and enduring in Angrboda's life. How did their relationship compare to Angrboda and Loki's? I really I love them both for different reasons. Like, I found Loki's relationship to be kind of almost sweet, and like it had some kind of an innocence to it, even though obviously he's a trickster god and maybe not trustworthy. But I still found their relationship to be kind of beautiful, and they had like, it's a sort of like an innocence. Like, I'm not sure innocence is the right word, but the way they were both like outcasts, sort of, in Asgard, and she's hiding from them, sort of, and Loki just never fits in with the other gods. And so them being sort of like outsiders to that gave them more, like, I don't know what words I want. But I just thought their relationship was really sweet. But the relationship with Angrboda and Skady was just really, really interesting to watch grow and seeing it develop throughout the story. And I kind of thought early on that Skady might even have just like a little crush on Angrboda, just the way that they talk together and stuff like that. But I really liked seeing how it sort of developed through the story into a romantic relationship, and how they were both almost afraid of it. Like, they weren't sure if the other person felt that way, and they were both a little bit nervous about it. And I just thought it was really beautiful. And The fact that they were like best friends and that Skady was maybe the only person that Angerboda trusted in her whole life. I don't know. I loved that. I loved all of this stuff at the end of the book. I just felt like the end of the book could have gone on for another 500 pages and I would have enjoyed, I would have eaten it up. I would love more of that because I just thought it was beautiful. And yes, I agree. They didn't have enough time together. I wished that they'd figured out their love for each other sooner. Erin says that for some reason she didn't trust Skady at first impression. She grew on me over time, but initially I loved the dry sense of humor and banter between Loki and Angerboda. I loved the banter. That was one of the best parts of the book for me, honestly. And like I said, I could hear it in Tom Hiddleston's voice. Like, I just think he is Loki at this point in my mind, and I just can't see it in any other way. Hi, Dania. I'm glad you could come. Okay, let's talk some more about this story. So, okay, the author scatters tidbits of Viking Age material culture, like null binding, even though the book is set in a mythic version of the past. Did you find the portrayal of the Viking Age culture evocative? And did you learn anything about how people in that time lived? I feel like at this point, I've seen a lot of Viking culture. So I've watched all of the show Vikings at this point, I think all 6 seasons. I've also seen The Last Kingdom. So I feel like my mind already knows what things look like and what they sound like and that sort of thing. So I liked the addition of that kind of stuff into the story because I think it made it feel more real. So the null binding, for that word is new to me. So I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, I feel like I've watched a lot of Viking era things, but I haven't read a ton of Viking stories. So I'm definitely going to have to seek that out because I really loved this and I want more of it. So I'm going to have to see what I can find. If anyone has any recommendations for books set in this time period, whether it be Norse mythology or just Norse in general, I would love to know because that's something I would like to read more of. But I did find that really interesting that so much of the story it felt more realistic to me, even though obviously it's mythology, so it's not really realistic, but I loved it all the same. Yes, Danny, I have it behind me because I was recommending to people that they should read this if they wanted more mythology because I felt like they paired really well together. I had read this, I don't know, two years ago maybe, and so a lot of the stories that are referenced in The Witch's Heart I'd remembered from Norse mythology. Okay, let's see. Near the end of the story, Angerboda has a moment when she wonders if Loki and Odin have been plotting together during the entire book. Do you think there was any possibility of that? I kind of do. I do feel like there's a possibility that Loki was more aware than he was letting on. Because he is a trickster, and I think that that's just how he works. That's just how he thinks. So the fact that so much of what she'd seen but didn't tell him because he didn't want to know, the fact that he still kind of just did those things and it all happened sort of in an expected or unexpected way. I don't know how to word that either, but I do feel like he knew what he was doing and that he knew that what he was going to do would result in starting Ragnarok. So part of me thinks that he was aware because I don't think Loki is the kind of person who does things unaware. I think he's always sort of one step ahead. he doesn't strike me as the type to just like spontaneously do crazy things. I think he's really, I think that's the Thor thing to do. Thor kind of does things because he feels like it. But I think Loki has a plan at all times and sort of is prepared and knows what's going to happen. So I do kind of think that even though he said he didn't want to know the future, that he did already know and was in on Odin's plan the whole time. So that's just the way I read it, though. That's my interpretation. Okay, Angrboda has visions of the future and a strong notion of what her fate and that of her children's will be, even though she hopes she can change it. Do you consider knowing the future to be a gift or a curse? Loki refused to hear his wife's prophecies. Would you do the same? Do you think he knew more than he let on? So I already said that I do think he knew more than he let on. Do I think it's a curse? I do, in a way, because like I don't think I'd ever want to know. Like I've always thought it weird that people would go to a psychic and like want to know what happens to them in the future, because I don't think you want to know that. I think if you know what's coming, then you're going to constantly be thinking about it and dwelling on it. And like Angrboda does throughout the whole story, she's constantly thinking about it and like worrying, is this it? Is this what's going to happen? Have I started it by doing this thing? Or if I did it this way, will it still trigger it? Like you're constantly worrying and dwelling and thinking. And I think that's a terrible way to live. Just the stress of that situation and constantly thinking that you need to change and fix it. Like, I think it's better to not know. And I don't know. So I think it's kind of a curse, but I can understand why some people might see it as a blessing, because yeah, now you can like somehow circumvent it and prevent that thing from happening. And no, but it isn't something I'd want to know. Oh yeah, Emily, it was definitely problematic for Sigyn. Oh, that was terrible to see how that affected her. The end of the book depicts Ragnarok, the end of the world as Angrboda knew it. Yet she ensures that her daughter will find a new life and her legacy will live on in story. How did the ending make you feel? Happy, sad, or a mix of both? For me, it was bittersweet, I guess, is how I would describe it. I thought the ending was beautiful. I loved the concept of, even though she was gone, that she lives on in story. And is she really gone? I mean, we're talking about gods here. Are they ever really gone? Or are they just less prominent at this point? Like they're hidden or like ghostly almost at the end of the story. Like you might spot something moving in the woods and, oh, that's Loki or that's Angrboda now. But I loved the way, they show that they're now normal people and the gods have all left, but now they live on in story and myth. That's kind of like how I picture like Viking mothers sitting around a fire telling their children tales of the gods of long ago and that sort of thing. So I loved that. I just thought it was very beautiful. The writing in this book was great. I just loved it. So totally a 5-star read for me. I thought it was beautiful. I also thought the whole concept at the end of death and what that means to Angrboda and to her children and that sort of thing, I thought it was very beautifully done. I had literally just watched the finale of The Good Place, which I won't spoil if you haven't seen it yet, but if you have, you know what I'm talking about. But so it's been like something I've been thinking about in my mind, like death and like what happens after you die and that sort of thing. So reading that, it like connected so well with The Good Place finale. Like, I don't know. It's just things I've been thinking about a lot in the last few days. So I don't know. I thought it was very beautiful. the way, the idea of what happens to them after they die and how they live on through stories. So they're never really gone all the way. I just thought that was beautiful. So I loved it. And I just thought this book was so good. My favorite character. Let's talk about, we haven't talked about favorites yet. Who is my favorite character? I want to say Angrboda, obviously, because she's like the main character and I loved her. But I'm going to also say I really liked Skadi and Loki. They were like my three favorites. But like Loki and Angrboda's banter was just great. I just loved it. So I'm trying to see, what else do I have? Who is your least favorite character? Do you have a least favorite character from the story? I mean, I think we're not meant to like most of the other gods. They're sort of like uppity, I guess is a good word for it. They're written in a way that like they think they're better. The Aesir see themselves as above, like that's why they're gods. Like they see themselves as being above or better than Angrboda. So like I don't know that I could pick a specific character that I disliked, but I think overall most of the other gods were kind of jerks and not the nicest to Angrboda. And I really loved that Skadi, while being one of them, was also able to like step back and like, I don't really want to be a part of that. So I thought that was really neat for her as a character. Is there anything we didn't talk about that anyone wants to bring up? I tried to come with a plan tonight so I wasn't too scatterbrained because last month was a mess. This has just been like the craziest couple of weeks for me. I don't know how I've managed to get through it, but I did. I'm proud that I even accomplished anything between the in-laws being here, then my father visiting, then like literally today we dropped my two oldest off at college. So it's just been chaos. It really has been very chaotic and crazy the last couple of weeks. It's like everything's stopping now. Like everyone's gone. We can all kind of relax. It's going to be quiet for the next little bit. So I'm going to try to like decompress and pull myself together. Okay, I think we've talked about everything that I wrote down. Yeah, so yeah, if there's anything anyone wants to chat about the book. Yes, I'm going to try to rest, Dania. I'm going to try. I'm not a person who can stop, though. Oh, yes, Emily. I loved that too. The way the Norse mythology was just woven into the story in such a natural way. It never felt like she was like, okay, time for a new myth. Like the way that Loki would just like, I have to tell you what was happening yesterday. And then it would just be a common Norse myth that he was explaining. Like, I just thought that was really, really well done. I'm definitely going to have to look for more of Genevieve Gornichek's books. I think this is a debut. Is this a debut? Or has she written other things? I don't even know. It is. This is her debut. So I'm definitely going to keep an eye out. I hope she writes more because that was just so good. If anyone knows of another book like this, let me know. I definitely need it in my library. So I just want to remind people that we're going to be reading this month, The Passengers by John Mars. I'm probably going to start this next week because I don't think I'm going to be able to do it this week, but I'm excited for this book because this is fast-paced and like full of action, and it should go really quick. Oh, yes, Aaron said seed. Seed? Is that how you say it? S-E-I-D. Seed or said? I'm not sure. And Yggdrasil were interesting to me. I want to learn more about Norse mythology and the Nine Worlds realms. Yes, me too. Like I've read stuff about those things, but I definitely want to seek out more. American Gods is another book that I read that, while not specifically Norse mythology, has some Norse mythology in it. Like there is Yggdrasil and Odin is one of the main characters. So like if you're looking for things like that, you might like American Gods by Neil Gaiman. Ugh, yes, Emily. The story of Loki and Thor dressed up in wedding dresses. And I loved the fact that he's like, I didn't even try to make myself look like a woman. Just I threw on a dress. I love that. I loved like seeing Loki's portrayal as like, sometimes I wear dresses and that's just me and it's totally normal. And I just like that so much because I don't think that's a common portrayal of him, like at least not in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I liked that a lot. But yeah, I think this is going to be, that's upside down. I think this is going to be a really fast read, which is what I need right now because I've just been like craving something like this. So definitely excited to read this with you guys because I just feel like my brain has just been so busy that it just really needs something kind of light. And that is exactly why I picked this. I just had a feeling that in August I was going to need something fast paced and fun. And I feel like this is also really plot twisty. I don't know. Did you guys read, is it The One or just One? I forget. I think it's The One is another one of John Mars's books. And I read that last fall and it was so good and so fun and like exactly what I was looking for to get out of a reading slump. So I'm excited to pick this up because it sounds great. This is like self-driving cars are now becoming the new popular thing and people think they're safer because of that. And now 8 people find themselves trapped in a self-driving car. And what is it? Yeah, the doors lock, the route changes, and you've lost all control. And then a mysterious voice tells you you're going to die. And so you're now trapped in this car, and it's being televised from cameras that are hidden in the car, like a reality show. And then people viewing it get to choose, like, what is the fate of each of these 8 people. And it just sounds really fun. So excited for that. Kind of almost like a grown-up version of the Hunger Games, except that they're trapped and obviously not killing each other. So very much looking forward to that. Also, I love the concept of self-driving cars, and I'm wondering when we'll get to have that because, like, ever since I read the Arrrgh of the Scythe series, it's been something that I'm like, when do we get self-driving cars? That sounds so convenient. Can we have that, please? I don't know. Maybe this will make me not trust it. I don't know. But for now, anyway, I think that's a fantastic idea. I hate driving. In fact, I don't drive, so it would be great to have a self-driving car. Yeah, I would love to just like be able to hop in a car and have it take me where I need to go without having to deal with another person or any of that. I think that's great. So I am all in for self-driving cars. So anyway, I'm excited to read that with you guys. Oh, I wish we had buses nearby. We live kind of out in the, I won't say out in the country, but a little bit out in the country. So we're near cities, but not near enough that we have buses. So that's why Sarah is like intent on living in a walkable city with public transportation. Like that is her goal. She wants to live in a city, have public transportation, and have everything be within walking distance so she doesn't have to drive. And I'm like, that's great. You should do that. So, but I don't like being around that many people. So I don't actually want to live in a city because it's too many people. It's too people-y out there. Okay, so I guess we'll wrap up if we don't have any more discussion about the book in particular, unless you guys, anyone had anything else they wanted to add about either The Witch's Heart or The Passengers. I don't know when the live show will be yet for The Passengers. I'm aiming for like early September, like the very first week of September. So I don't want to go too far for a live show for a book because I couldn't do it sooner. There's just too much stuff going on. Oh, that does sound nice, Dania, to be able to like take buses and stuff places. We don't have that nearby enough. I've always wanted to go out to Seattle. I don't know. I was really big into the grunge scene in the 90s. So I've always like had Seattle like as a cool place to go someday, but it's very far. I don't know if I'll ever get out there, but definitely on my list of places I'd like to visit. I've heard Seattle is very beautiful, although very wet. I'm not sure how I feel about all that rain. I don't know. I do need some sunshine. But yeah, definitely on my list of places I'd like to see at some point in my life. I really haven't left the East Coast of the United States ever. I've been all the way up and down. I've been to basically every state on the East Coast, but that's it. That's as far as I've gone. So someday I'd like to venture out west and see some stuff because I just never have. Ugh, I've always wanted to go to Powell's bookstore. Yes. Powell's is definitely on my list of places I'd like to visit. I basically want to do a bookstore tour of the entire country because I think that would be really fun. Someday, when all my children have grown and left, I think it would be fun for my husband and I to like either rent or buy an RV and just kind of like go and see places and like do a bookstore like tour of the country. I think that'd be really fun. But that's like years counted, 8 years or so, probably less than that, honestly. My youngest is going to be a 7th grader this year. So we're not that far off, honestly. The Book Wanderers. I have not, but I'm going to go look that up right now, as I don't know too much about that book. Middle grade, Book Wanderers. I'm going to look it up right now because I will forget. Give me a second. It sounds bookish. Ooh, I like the cover a lot. Oh my gosh. I don't know if I can like, that's beautiful. I might have to buy that just based on the cover. Okay. I do think I'll love it. That's beautiful. It looks really cute. There's a cat on the cover. Okay. I'll definitely add that to my TBR. Thanks for the recommendation. All right, I'm going to go ahead and we'll wrap this up. Thank you guys for hanging out with me and keeping me company and talking all things The Witch's Heart. It's been a lot of fun. So I'll see you guys next month at the beginning of September when we talk about The Passengers. I'll share more about that on my Instagram and on my community tab page on YouTube to let you know the date for the live show. So good night, guys, and I'll see you guys next time. Happy reading. Bye.